Good afternoon, this is Brett, and welcome to my backyard. It is a beautiful day here in East Texas, bright and sunshiny, 84 degrees, a bit of wind, but that's okay today. Hope y'all can hear me. I'm trying to stand in front of the sun, so maybe y'all will be able to see me here a little bit. But today is February 21st, and so today we are actually out here planting potatoes. Now, usually I try to plant my potatoes on Valentine's Day, February 14th, which was a week ago. But this year, it was a little cold last week. We had a couple of nights, got down to 30 degrees still. Had a bunch of rain last week. In fact, our pond over at the farm got a little bit over full. It was a wet, soggy mess. And so we didn't want our potatoes rotting in the ground. We figured we'd give it a couple of more days of sunshine, a little wind to dry it out a little bit before we started planting. Now it is coming in some more rain this week, but that's going to be okay. It's going to give them a good water to start, good rainwater for them. But we've been able to get the soil going and prepped so that they'll be okay to plant into this soil. So first off, I want to show you a potato today. This year, I am actually planting seed potatoes. I went and bought certified seed potatoes. I have used the store-bought potatoes in the past with good results. If you have a few store-bought potatoes that are starting to sprout, go ahead and plant them and give them a try. But these, I'm using the certified seed potatoes this year because they've got a couple varieties maybe I can't get at the store. And so, like we talked just a second ago, we've been preparing this soil here, and I wanted to give it a chance to dry out before I got the potatoes in. I didn't want it to be too boggy. Go ahead and rot them. But I've been mixing this. This was an area we were growing last year, growing some peas and beans in this area. And you may remember from an older video that I have. And so we had a good loose soil to start with. We had nitrogen fixing crops growing in this area. We have since added some potash from the fireplace, from the oak wood over the winter. You know, the oak wood, I've done a video on that I burn oak wood around here. It has the highest amount of nutrients of any of the woods that you burn, and it'll last a little longer in your soil as well. Plus, it's good, it doesn't clog up your fireplace either. So we've added that into the soil, mixed it around. You can probably see some leaf bits, as well as a lot of well-rotted chicken manure. This chicken manure was rotten for about 1.5 to 2 years, so we've added several inches of chicken manure that we've mixed in here along with this to give some good nutrients to start these potatoes with. Now I'll show you one of them. This is a new variety that I'm growing this year. This is a Kennebec potato. It's supposed to be a good hardy potato, and like all the others, it likes a soil temperature of at least 50 degrees. Most of your vegetables, in fact, like the soil to be about 50 degrees before they really get to going. But as you notice, it's got some good eyes sprouting on this one. Lots of eyes on this side here. Let's turn it over. Not as many on this side. So when we plant it, we're gonna make sure we plant it this side up so we can give it a little bit of a head start. Also, I'm planting whole potatoes. Now, some people like to cut their potatoes, and that's just fine. If you're needing to stretch them out, make them go a little further, you can cut a potato sometimes into several pieces, at least 2, 3, 4 pieces. There's a couple of drawbacks if you do that. First of all, if you're cutting your potatoes, you want to make sure you get at least one good eye into each piece of potato. First downfall of doing that is the smaller you cut this, the less nutrients that the potato is going to have to start to get them roots and stalks established. Come on and push on up and start putting out some leaves. That's why I usually like to plant whole potatoes, to give it a good nutrient start with. Then once it gets the foliage growing up and the nutrients or the roots down in there, it'll be able to take on and produce many. This potato will shrivel and rot as it produces the new potatoes. But them little bitty pieces, sometimes they just don't have enough energy to get a plant started with. Your second downfall, if you do cut it into pieces, you want to make sure each piece is well dried before you put them out. Some people will dust these off and go ahead and put them in the ground, but that wet potato, it can rot. Potatoes rot, and it can rot in the ground, and then you can lose your whole crop. So if you do cut your potatoes, I recommend at least 3 to 4 days. That's not a certain amount of time. You just want to make sure that that cut end is starting to shrivel, and we call it scabbing over. It's probably going to be turning a brown or a black color. Make sure it's good and dry, very solid there. And then you want to plant that cut side down. So when you're planting, you don't want to cut a middle sliver out of a potato. You're giving it 2 exposed edges to try to rot from. So like I said, if I go to cutting potatoes, I probably want to cut it just in half, maybe no more than 4 pieces into quarters or something like that. You want to give it the least amount of area to rot as possible. But you can do that. That's okay. Each eye will produce a plant, and you may have some good results. Just be aware of the fact there. But for me, I'm going to be using whole potatoes this year. And so, like I said, these are, man, look at the size of that. I got a big old hand, and that is a monster potato. Looking forward to seeing how these go. Like I said, these are pretty hardy. A lot of your specialty potato chips are made out of these Kennebec potatoes. So there's a fun fact for you for the day. So I told you that we've had a good mixture, get our soil prepped here this year. So it's good, it's loose, well-draining soil, which potatoes want. And I'm spacing them out. This board here, pay no mind to it. It's just a straight edge. I'm not leaving that board in there. It's just, I wanted to have a straight row when planting my potatoes here. That is also not required. You can get all loosey-goosey in here. But if you do so, just remember, the potatoes like to have a little space when they're growing. And so I'll show you what we got over here. These are the ones I've planted so far. These are the red soda, these are the red soda I'm planting this year. You also have a red Norland, which is similar potatoes. These are great. And what I've done with my rows here is I've dug down about 3 inches, just enough that I can lay the potato in the ground, and I'm gonna cover them up. And when we first put our potatoes in the ground, we want to go ahead and cover them 3 to 4 inches of dirt. And so when I level these off back, if you can see when I place these in the ground, they're just barely going to be under the ground. And we don't want to have that potato showing, because potatoes, whenever they get exposed to sunlight, they start to turn green. I believe it's called solanine that they produce. It makes them taste terrible. They don't produce as good. Just something we want to avoid. We want to make sure that the potatoes are always covered while they're growing. We don't want to let them get out. If you ever start seeing one get exposed, cover it with a little dirt or mulch or something. Make sure them potatoes are always covered. Now, the potato is also going to grow its roots down from that potato. The roots are going to go down. The stalk is going to come up from there. So when you go to harvest your potatoes, you are very rarely going to find a potato below this level that you plant this one. Most of your potatoes are going to be either level and coming up from that stalk area there. And so most of the time, most of your potatoes are going to be growing in that first 8 inches. 8 inches is about the height that potatoes like to grow there. So you just think about if you were to set a bag of potatoes on top of this, like a 5-pound bag of potatoes, that's about the space that they really like to grow in. And so as we go along, we're going to be doing the hilling method. That may explain to some of you why we hill them up. As the potatoes grow up that stalk, the potatoes are going to be growing off of that stalk up to a certain level. That's why we continue to mound the dirt or mulch up on them. Like I said, at least that 8-inch level. I prefer to go up into 12 inches of dirt and mulch there to make sure that my potatoes are covered. Beyond that, you may see people building these big potato towers, and so you have had people maybe get a potato here and there, but usually potatoes are not going to be putting out potatoes 4 feet up in the air. The plant runs out of energy. It just is not able to produce that amount, and so you might get one here or there. It's better to focus your energy on that first foot level and go from there. And so these here, I have dug my rows out, drained soil here, good loose soil here, and I am spacing them about 1 foot apart. 1 foot to 15 inches is really good on your potatoes. And you'll see I planted these about 1 foot, and what I've done is there's a little bit different sizes in my seed potatoes, and so I went with kind of a big one of the bigger ones, one of the smaller ones, one of the bigger ones, one of the smaller ones, and just went about 1 foot that direction to give them a good spacing to grow. And then in between, we're going to give about 2.5 to 3 feet at least here to give a good amount of space for them potatoes to grow. We don't want to have them too close together. If you were to have them 1 foot that direction and 1 foot coming across this direction also, you will get a potato plant and you will get potatoes. It's just the more they're bunched in there, the more they're going to be fighting for the nutrients. They're not going to have the room to really expand, and so you're going to have a smaller potato. We want to have some big potatoes, and so we're going to give a good amount of space in between. Plus that gives us an area to walk in between there if we want to. And so we've got a second row here, and so like I mentioned, once we've got the potatoes in the ground, I'm just going to take this dirt that I dug out from them, gently cover it here. Alrighty. Good. Now you'll notice that we got the ground leveled off there. I'm going to do that on up through there. And so what I've done on my first row is, after I got the ground leveled off on top of the potatoes, I came in between. You may notice my little markers down at the end. I'm just going to leave there long enough to get me a good straight line, know where they are. And I come right in between them, and I dug a little ditch here basically. And so what I'm doing is I'm getting down just slightly below the level of them potatoes, just going down about 3 inches or so. For one, if we do get a lot of water, that'll help the water come over to the side, give it a little channel to get out of there, let the soil drain very well. But also I'm taking that dirt and I'm mounding it. It allows you to heal up a lot faster. And so I took that 3 inches of dirt there, put it on top of this row of potatoes here. Now these potatoes are probably at least 3 to 4 inches by the time we covered them here. Took this dirt, put it on top there. That gives it a good 3 to 4 inches of dirt to start with. And we're gonna let it go there until our potatoes emerge. And then we're gonna add a little bit more. Usually you wanna let your potatoes grow about 6 inches of plant material, of leaf material. And then you wanna cover up that amount between 4 to 6 inches. Cover up that dirt until you cover all but that top couple inches. And then we're going to let that plant grow again until it gets another 6 inches or so. Cover up all but that top couple inches. And the reason we don't do it all at one time, although you can, I have seen potatoes from 8-12 inches deep come on up and break the surface. Like we mentioned earlier, we don't want that potato running out of energy before it starts to produce something. So we want that plant to be coming on up. So we're going to let it grow in 2 different sections, covering it twice, making sure there's going to be some leaves exposed. But we're only going to cover it to about that 12-inch mark there. And then we're going to let that potato plant come on up from there. Potato plants usually grow about 40 inches tall, 3.5, 4 foot tall there, and so that amount may be exposed above the ground there and providing nutrients, sunlight to grow them potatoes. But we're only going to cover, like I mentioned, that top 1 foot over the potato, that's where we're going to get our spuds from later. Now after this, I'm going to cover it with a little bit of mulch here. I've got generously donated all of these leaves, and I got some good mulch down there on that end, and I may try a mixture. We'll just see how it goes later, but it's good to have some sort of mulch on top of the dirt as well. Not only does it keep some of the moisture in the ground so it doesn't get too dry if we had a drought like we did last summer, that mulch will break down, provide nutrients, of course, across the season here. And it also protects when we do get our rain. Whenever you've got this hill going, we don't want that rain to come in and wash all the dirt off our potato. Like we mentioned earlier, if they get exposed to the sunlight, that's not good, and that mulch will help keep that exposure down as well. So I hope y'all enjoyed that video today. I know I did. It's Fat Tuesday here, and I just showed y'all one of my favorite vegetables for making you good and fat, the potato. You can do it any way. Slice it, dice it, fry it, boil it, smash it. It's all good. It's maybe my favorite food. And if y'all like that video, be sure to subscribe at the bottom. Leave me a comment, share with your friends. Let me know how your garden's growing, and we'll talk to y'all next time.